Tonight, American passengers from that hantavirus cruise back on U.S. soil. At least one person testing positive. But new questions tonight. How long will their quarantine last? The major operation taking them to Nebraska. The positive passenger in a biocontainment unit like this. Another posting a selfie from quarantine. Two more passengers flown to a different hospital in Atlanta. Plus, with other countries mandating a quarantine, growing questions on whether the U.S. should, too. Also breaking tonight, the shootout on a highway in Boston. Someone seeming to open fire randomly. Look at the bullets hitting cars and trucks, drivers running for their lives. New reporting on how it ended. Louvre terror threat, an alleged attack against one of the world's most famous museums thwarted. What we're learning about the suspect now in custody. Everglades inferno, the wildfire exploding in size just outside Miami. Thick smoke smothering highways. Our reporter on the front lines. Will President Trump suspend the gas tax? What he's now saying and how much it could save you if it happens. Deadly takeoff, an apparent trespasser on the runway. Video capturing the moments before the horrific crash. Panicked passengers evacuating on slides after the engine burst into flames. Smoke filling the cabin. So how did that person get on the runway in the first place? Our new series, Business in America. Craig Melvin going one-on-one with Nike's CEO. A man caught on camera diving into Rome's iconic Trevi fountain, the punishment he now faces. And our Tom Yamas on the ground in Beijing before those highly anticipated talks between President Trump and China's leader. What's at stake for the two superpowers? Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
Good evening. I'm Hallie Jackson in for Tom, and we begin tonight with those growing questions over what's next for the 18 Americans now back in the U.S. after the deadly hantavirus outbreak on their cruise ship. Take a look here. This is the moment that more than a dozen of them, police escort too, arrived at a state-of-the-art quarantine facility in Omaha. And that includes somebody who just tested positive for the virus, now in this highly specialized biocontainment unit. Two other people, including someone who started getting symptoms on the way home, seen here entering a similar facility in Atlanta. The ship's passengers now dispersing around the world to the countries you see here. And in some of those places, there's a mandatory quarantine period for the passengers, as long as 42 days. The protocol here seems less strict. So when will the American passengers be allowed to go home? Our team pressing officials today for answers and covering every angle on the ground in Omaha and Atlanta, with Camila Bernal starting us off from Nebraska.
Under cover of darkness, a convoy of buses shadowed by police escorts winding through the streets toward the University of Nebraska Medical Center. 16 Americans on board after evacuating that virus-stricken cruise ship. Among them, one who tested mildly positive for hantavirus but is not experiencing symptoms, is now isolated in the center's biocontainment unit out of an abundance of caution, where even contact with medical personnel is limited. While the other 15 are in quarantine and asymptomatic, including Jake Rosemarin, who posted this photo on social media showing his room and saying he's feeling well.
How often are they getting checked?
They're actively checking temperatures and getting evaluated at a minimum on a daily basis.
They are among 18 U.S. citizens brought home on a highly coordinated repatriation flight. The American who tested mildly positive and another exhibiting mild symptoms were isolated throughout the journey, according to the Department of Health and Human Services.
Do they have a choice to leave, or are they being told you have to stay here for a particular amount of time?
They certainly have the option to stay here for the entire 42-day period.
Ultimately, though, will it be their decision?
Yes, we want to do this in the least restrictive way possible.
The symptomatic passenger and their partner were sent to Atlanta, both wheeled out of an ambulance at Emory University. It's the end of a harrowing journey that began with an evacuation in the Canary Islands. There, red military buses lined the docks, passengers sprayed with disinfectant by workers in full-body hazmat suits before being allowed to board the jet home. The ship now headed back to the Netherlands, the captain describing extremely challenging weeks.
I wish nothing more to everybody, guests and crew alike, to be able to go home safely and in good health.
Camila is joining us now from outside that medical center in Omaha. So, Camila, why wouldn't they just give every passenger who was on that ship a PCR test?
So, Hallie, officials here telling me that per CDC guidelines, only people with symptoms would be tested, although they do say those plans can change. So we know that the people in the biocontainment unit are being tested, but we do not have those results yet. Hallie?
Camila Bernal, thank you. So with those Americans now back here at home after that cruise, growing questions about whether the hantavirus could spread in the U.S. Tonight, the focus is on the quarantine and whether it's long enough. Aaron Gilchrist has more.
Tonight, 18 Americans quarantining inside special medical facilities in Omaha and Atlanta. But officials have not said how long they'll stay.
They actually can move home and continue their quarantine there, and then the tracking will be turned over to the state and local health departments.
But in Spain, passengers will be forced to quarantine for 42 days, clearing the hantavirus's incubation period, which would ensure there is no infection. And France says it will isolate its passengers for 42 days. Dr. Ashish Jha oversaw the COVID response for the Biden administration.
I think the safest way to do that is what, for instance, Spain is doing. Spain is putting all of the people who came off the ship on a 6-week quarantine.
His reasoning? This disease is still relatively unstudied.
At least a few people contracted it without that sort of prolonged close exposure that we've always assumed.
As of now, the American passengers, if not showing any symptoms, will be allowed to go home and monitor their symptoms themselves. What do you say to people who might have concern about that reality?
Well, they're not going back to their normal lives. They're still going to be tracked for 42 days.
Jody Guest is an epidemiologist at Emory University and not connected to the care of the cruise passengers there.
The state and local health departments will do the monitoring. There's certainly going to be this continual contact tracing and surveillance of the symptoms.
Officials insist the public is safe, but admit there are no absolute certainties.
There are no guarantees in life. We're putting as many measures in place as possible to ensure that people are safe and healthy.
Aaron is joining us now. So, Aaron, let's get specific here. How are these passengers going to be monitored once they are released from these various facilities?
Well, Hallie, we do know that the federal government is right now working with state and local health departments to set up the conditions for these people to be able to return to their home states. It kind of varies once they get back to their home states. We do know that state and local health departments will be engaged in the monitoring process for each of these people to see if they do develop symptoms and require isolation. But it will be a state-by-state process, Hallie.
Aaron Gilchrist, thank you. To Massachusetts now, where a gunman opened fire on a major road bordering Boston. Police arresting a suspect and now searching for a motive. Sam Brock reports on the tense scene tonight.
Tonight, chaos on the streets of Cambridge.
We're getting reports of gunshots fired.
With this chilling scene unfolding in the college town, a man appearing to carry a long gun and walking right down a major street, firing his weapon, according to eyewitnesses.
We heard some gunshots. Cars started turning around. They got jammed up on the sidewalk trying to turn around. People started running.
He started shooting those cars, at least 2-3 shots.
A bullet hole visibly shattered a postal truck windshield with cars up against trees. One man telling NBC Boston he and his coworker heard around 20 shots as they left their construction project.
I looked up and the dude had his rifle pointed at us. And so I turned and ran back to my car, jumped down behind my dashboard. My buddy got out of his and went running with the crowd.
The horror shaking up this witness, Brandon, and his wife. Just grateful that he's alive.
Sorry, it's hitting me right now.
The Harvard Police Department saying it received a call in the afternoon from Cambridge police that a person armed with a gun fired shots, possibly injuring 2 victims. The suspect is in custody. There is no ongoing threat to the campus. Massachusetts State Police said no information is immediately available about the shooting. As the day's events still sinking in, a possible mass casualty situation avoided.
This much danger doesn't happen in Cambridge.
Sam Brock, NBC News.
New reporting tonight on a thwarted terror attack on the Louvre Museum in Paris. Tom Winter is joining us now. And Tom, sounds like French officials have arrested the suspect here?
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. Tonight, a 27-year-old is facing charges tied to terrorism after the alleged plot was uncovered. Counterterrorism officials tell NBC News the investigation found evidence that the man may have been targeting members of the Jewish community in Paris, as well as a museum, reportedly the Louvre, according to Le Monde, a French news publication. NBC News has not confirmed that report. The officials say he was also considering joining ISIS overseas. Nearly 9 million visit the Louvre each year. and it comes as Europe has faced several terrorism-related incidents in recent weeks, primarily targeting the Jewish community across multiple countries. Hallie.
Tom Winter, thank you. Here at home, and intense wildfires ripping across the Everglades outside Miami, burning 11,000 acres already. And now it's threatening homes nearby. Our Jesse Kirsch is on the front lines.
Tonight, this wildfire exploding outside Miami, already burning more than 11,000 acres. Firefighters airdropping water over towering plumes of smoke that can be seen for miles.
This is the fire, and this is in the direction of my house.
The blaze fueled by dry grass in Florida's lush Everglades. The flames even visible from outer space. The brush fire broke out Sunday with the wind blowing mostly northwest away from population centers. So far, no injuries have been reported. But the wildfire has threatened some homes, including Roxanne Gills. She says the fire was blocking the road.
The only way to leave was to take an airboat.
And tonight, authorities urging residents near the smoke to stay indoors.
Even healthy individuals may experience eye irritation, coughing, sore throat.
Jesse is joining us now from near the Everglades there. Jesse, they're working hard to contain this thing, right?
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. And you can see off in the distance some smoke. That is where a lot of the firefighters' efforts have been. We've seen multiple fire vehicles rushing in there throughout the afternoon, a helicopter dropping buckets of water over that area as this fire continues making its way, thankfully, away from population centers. And authorities have said that this blaze is 50% contained. Hallie.
Jesse Kirsch, thank you. Here in Washington, a new push by President Trump to try to bring down soaring gas prices by potentially pressing pause on the federal gas tax. But that's something that would need Congress to sign off. Ryan Nobles explains.
Tonight, with the national average for gas now at $4.50 a gallon, President Trump looking to reduce the pain at the pump by suspending the federal gas tax.
Mr. President, are you going to suspend the federal gas tax?
Yeah, I'm going to reduce until let me tell you, as soon as this is over with Iran, as soon as it's over, you're going to see gasoline and oil drop like a rock.
That move would require an act of Congress and would reduce prices by about 18 cents a gallon. All as President Trump is warning the fragile ceasefire with Iran is on the verge of collapse.
I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support.
Slamming Iran's latest response, which would delay any negotiations over its nuclear program as, quote, garbage.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, and they didn't want to go that far. They think that, well, I'll get tired of this, or I'll get bored, or I'll have some pressure, but there's no pressure. There's no pressure at all. We're going to have a complete victory.
And on Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium?
We talked about it, and they said, you'll have to take it out because we don't have the capability of doing it.
So, sir, are you saying that the Iranians have agreed to allow the removal of all their enriched uranium?
Yeah. And well, they did it 2 days ago. They didn't, okay? They did 2 days ago. They said, you're going to have to take it. We were going to go with them, but they changed their mind because they didn't put it in the paper.
Experts say even 1 month without the gas tax would cost the Highway Transportation Fund, which maintains federal highways, $3.5 billion. Hallie?
Ryan Nobles, thank you. When we return in 60 seconds, the stunning runway crash. How did someone manage to get into the path of a plane at one of the busiest hubs in America? Next. To that terrifying scene at Denver's airport. Tonight, we are hearing from a passenger on board the Frontier flight that crashed into someone who had managed to somehow get onto an active runway. Liz Kreutz reports on the big questions about safety protocols at this busy location.
Tonight, shocking new surveillance video showing the moment a trespasser ran right into the path of a Frontier plane taking off at Denver International, renewing questions about airport security.
We just hit somebody. We have an engine fire.
Authorities say the person, who has not been identified, deliberately scaled a perimeter fence before rushing onto the runway. The moment of impact caught on video. Passenger Kevin Cardis described the chaos after the fatal collision.
We're in disbelief. We couldn't believe that someone was striked, and we
We couldn't fathom how they got on the tarmac.
That's the question investigators are now working to answer. Part of the challenge, Denver International is massive, 53 square miles. That's twice the size of Manhattan, so big that Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson, O'Hare, LAX, and DFW would fit inside its borders. The airport also has 36 miles of barbed wire fencing.
I think we need to increase those security measures because if someone does have ill intent, there's very little to stop them from coming over the perimeter fence. I think the security rules need to be better. And I know it's a cost factor for airports.
Some passengers also questioning the evacuation, saying they were on the plane for several minutes as smoke filled the cabin.
Black smoke was in the air. It was very difficult to breathe. My initial reaction was just go. We were screaming to open the door.
Videos also show some people taking their luggage down the emergency slides, slowing the evacuation and a violation of FAA regulations.
It's a federal offense if you are not following crew member instructions.
Now, Frontier Airlines has not commented on those passengers' concerns, and the motive of the trespasser remains unclear. Hallie?
Liz Kreutz, thank you. We are back in a moment with what happened after a man was caught diving into Rome's iconic Trevi Fountain. Plus, what Nike's CEO is now telling Craig Melvin in our new series, Business in America. Next. Back now with a new move in the fight over access to abortion medication. Today, the Supreme Court's issuing an order letting people get mifepristone by mail for now. It comes as the justices consider a lower court ruling that would limit access to that medication and require an in-person doctor's visit to get a prescription. Also tonight, a major update in the case of Lynette Hooker, the boater who went missing in the Bahamas last month. The Coast Guard in Fort Pierce, Florida, says they've seized the sailboat she owned with her husband, Brian. This had been docked in the Bahamas since Lynette went overboard off the couple's dinghy. She was never found. Brian Hooker was arrested in her disappearance, but later released. No word yet on why the Coast Guard has the boat. And in Rome, new video of a man diving into the iconic Trevi Fountain in Rome. You see it there, maybe more of a belly flop. He's next to tourists posing for pictures. He goes in the water, wades around before officers make him get out. They put him in cuffs. Rome police say he'll have to pay $600 for that forbidden flotation. And as we kick off a new series at NBC News, Business in America, we're sitting down with top leaders for some of the country's biggest companies. And tonight, it's Craig Melvin, one-on-one with Nike's CEO, Elliott Hill, asking him about the shoe company's challenges in China.
You know, for decades, Nike convinced young kids in China that swoosh, like it was cool, it was aspiration. And now, I read recently, there's another company that is outselling Nike to the 25 and under crowd.
Yeah.
Is it a bigger problem than just Nike? Are American brands in general still as cool in China?
No, I don't think it's an American thing. I think it is having the sharpness and crispness around the consumer. The Chinese consumer is different than the American consumer. And so what we serve up to them from a product and a story perspective and how they choose to shop, we have to adapt to the Chinese consumer, and that's exactly what we're doing moving forward. That's part of the strategy that we're implementing now. So I think it's less about an anti-American and more about, hey, we've got to have the right product and the right story for us.
You can watch the full sit-down with Nike CEO with an NBC News subscription. That'll give you access to get extended interviews, exclusive content, and a whole lot more. And when we come back, it is not just Nike, but the rest of the world turning the spotlight onto China this week with that high-stakes summit between President Trump and President Xi. Tom reports from Beijing ahead of the president's historic trip next. Finally tonight to that historic summit just days away. President Trump face-to-face with China's leader. Tom is on the ground in Beijing, where he'll be giving us an inside look, not just at the talks, but at what China's doing to try to win the race for economic dominance.
Hallie, hello from Beijing. We are here in China ahead of that historic summit between President Trump and China's leader, Xi Jinping. A key face-to-face meeting that could help shape the rest of the president's term and his legacy. And as the U.S. seeks to end the war in Iran, what role will China play, Iran's most powerful ally? The president bringing American CEOs to Beijing to sit down with the Chinese as that bruising trade war between both nations continues. Plus, we'll show you how China's investments in AI, robots, and EVs are shaping its goal for global economic dominance and the future of technology. But China is facing headwinds as the youth of this massive nation are finding it difficult to land a job, leading to a social media movement called Lie Flat, sending a message to China's communist government that they see their future here at a standstill. And we'll take you to the Great Wall of China, what archaeologists have just discovered there. And from the Great Wall, we go to the Great Firewall. We'll show you how China, with its hundreds of millions of surveillance cameras and new apps, track everything you do, from walking to shopping to what you're reading and writing. A surveillance state that is constantly watching and censoring. We'll show you the apps that work in the U.S., but won't help you here. Nightly news live from Beijing. It all starts tomorrow night. We hope you'll join us.
And Tom will be back and reporting live from Beijing starting tomorrow night right here on Nightly News. Looking forward to that. I'm Hallie Jackson. For all of us here at NBC, thanks for watching and have a great night.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.